Okay.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to this week's coffee chat. I'm Tom from PH Nutrition. This week I'm sat here with Chris.
Hi guys.
Hey, this week we are going to be discussing all things kind of morning training related. So, you know, it's a big area that I get asked about. Obviously, Chris spends time in the gym early in the morning, so he gets asked about it as well. So we're just going to kind of, you know, have a quick discussion, chat a few ideas, and yeah, try and come up with some solutions. So have a pen and paper handy if you've got one. If there's anything we don't quite cover, feel free to drop me an email afterwards, which is tom@phnutrition.co.uk. So Chris, over to you, the early bird of the gym.
Yeah.
Let's kick this off.
Yes, so I think in terms of kind of our crowd that come in the morning, they sit into two general buckets. You've got those that are maybe not coming in until 7:30. I've got a little bit of time on their hands, probably get themselves a decent breakfast in. And you got those that, like me, who are getting up 30 minutes before they arrive at the gym. They're close to the gym. They arrive there just before class, and they're up super late for that class. So in terms of getting the nutrition in, pretty difficult for those people. So I think it would be really good for people to understand the importance of nutrition immediately before a workout, and whether they should be just going straight in with food as soon as they wake up, 15 minutes before they work out, or if actually that's a bit of a waste of time. You've not digested it as yet.
Yeah. So if we're looking, you know, at a class that's maybe 6:30, 7:30, in general terms of nutrition, a meal takes between 2 to 3 hours to digest. That can vary a little bit depending on what you eat, but so getting up at 4 a.m. to make breakfast probably isn't appealing, and potentially like challenging to like stomach a large meal at that time as well. So the main question that we get asked, and as you've kind of said, is like, you know, should we train fasted? Should we train in a fed state? Should we have a snack, etc.? Now, like training in a fasted state, like simply means like not eating or drinking anything potentially apart from water. Something that we commonly find is that people will say that they're training fasted, but then they'll drink like a BCAA or a protein shake or an EAA drink. So yeah, it's kind of true, but you know, anything with calorie value means it's not fasted. Potentially, like something like a BCAA may elicit a small insulin response as well. So there's no necessarily like one size fits all approach. There's definitely some benefits to training fasted and to training fed as well. So if we're training fasted, it's gonna prefer you to do maybe kind of lower intensity, longer duration exercises. So that may be what's in the program in that day. If it's more maybe body weight movements, more machine stuff, some running, you're probably going to be okay to do that in a fasted state. Or people, if they're at home and you know they're going out for a run again, or they're doing kind of lower intensity, longer duration exercise, training in a fasted state, yeah, pretty good. However, like if we're doing like a CrossFit class, a functional fitness class, it's often maybe heavier weights and higher intensity, right? So we may need potentially more adequate glycogen levels. If you've trained before as well, and maybe haven't eaten that many carbs, you can get up and train fasted, but you may feel a little bit sluggish. So glycogen can drop a little bit sometimes when the body repairs overnight. So what we may recommend is looking at, okay, you know, if we think like, how best to describe this? I don't know, you know, like, right, so it's, if the class is say at 7:30, we want to be looking at, right, what could we do, say half an hour before, or what could we do an hour before? So I would say an hour before is pretty much like your cutoff time to probably have any form of calorie value. But obviously we want something to digest quickly. You know, we don't want to be, you know, eating kind of food and then having to digest that, because we're sending blood then to our digestive system when by the time we get into class, we want blood in our muscles. So what we want to think about is something probably liquid based that's going to digest faster, and primarily it wants to be carbs for energy and a little bit of protein. So there's a couple of kind of options that you can use, and again you can kind of trial these out and see what's best. So for your carb source, you could simply use something like fruit juice, would be great. You could use something like coconut water, or you could use like a carb powder, something like dextrose or cyclodextrin.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could, for a protein source, you could go a smaller serving of protein powder. You could go, like I say, you could have some BCAA, but I would prefer people to use something called an EAA. So that's an essential amino acid. So it's a little bit more, kind of covers your kind of baseline there. So if you could take that on about an hour before, brilliant. That would probably digest in time for your class.
And when you say liquid based in that hour before class, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what if we're taking, probably a daft question, what if we're taking, solid fruits and stuff like that, and then kind of blending it into a smoothie, right? We're still good, right? We're still going to digest that pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quickly. Yeah, so you could go maybe like water or and with, like, say, maybe a piece of fruit. Ideally, you don't want too much fiber in that fruit, so probably something like banana or dates would maybe be better than something like an apple.
Okay, yeah.
And then you could add, like, say, a small scoop of protein powder or some essential amino acids or something like that. Again, you can be sometimes with a smoothie, you can very quickly make 2, 3, 4, 500 calories in a shake. So we do want to try and keep that lower. So maybe use water if you can. We want to avoid fat as well. So maybe try and avoid like milk or like almond milk or any kind of like nut-based alternative as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And then I guess so that's if you've got a good hour.
Yeah.
If you've not got that time, which is kind of the position I'm in and a few other people are in,
yeah,
it's maybe not potentially worthwhile taking something on board.
Yeah, I would say sometimes, and we see it not only with 6 a.m., like people eating half an hour before, we see it sometimes in evening classes. Someone's missed the snack, they come flying in through the gym, they grab a protein bar, and they're eating it like as they're like the coach is briefing them from the class. And again, you just end up asking your body to digest food, and then you go in and start working out, and you can end up then with undigested food. You can end up feeling a bit nauseous, and you're probably not going to have a very good workout. So if you're getting up, half an hour before a class, first protocol is going to be hydration. So you've not had anything to drink since the night before, and hydration is going to have the biggest effect on your performance. So, we want to get, a decent amount of liquid, probably at least 500 ml in. You could always add a hydration tablet to that as well. That could potentially help a little bit more. And then there's always the discussion around like caffeine and pre-workout. So people in the morning may kind of prefer that caffeine pre-workout hit, and that not a perfect time of day to use it, not a problem. Again, personal preference of when you take it. I'd say that for most people, like 30 to 45 minutes before is generally pretty good for caffeine or pre-workout. You could take it an hour before. Sometimes with some of our athletes, we don't like them going in super jittery. So if we get them to take their caffeine or pre-workout an hour before, they kind of get through the really jittery phase, and then it's just like nicely in their bloodstream. So it's personal preference, and if people want to play around with caffeine doses, I find caffeine tablets are a really good option, because often, again, if we make a coffee in the morning, that actually might take us longer to drink it and for it to cool down or whatever. So caffeine tablets are pretty instant, and then you can then control the dose. They normally come in, I think, 60 milligram tablets, so you could have like anywhere between 1 to 3. So you can play around for a dosage for you.
Okay, cool. Is there anything that the people that therefore can't get anything in, or kind of it's pointless getting something in just before? Is there anything they can do the night before? Can they eat well before bed or something like that, just to kind of support energy going into the workouts in the morning?
Yeah, definitely. Overall intake is obviously really important across the day. What you don't need to necessarily do is think about like carb loading or doing anything kind of crazy. Just eat. Normally if you've trained in the morning, your evening meal is obviously the meal that's furthest away from training. So we're not worried in that meal about like speed of digestion, or kind of high GI carbs or anything like that. Like that's the opportunity to eat the majority of maybe your veg, your slower digesting fibrous food. You can maybe have some slightly fattier meat, maybe like some salmon or some steak or something, again, because we're not worried about speed of digestion. And that meal, is just going to take a bit longer to digest, which is great. And it's kind of more overall intake rather than particularly anything maybe specific, unless you're if you're someone who's maybe like, more performance based, or maybe you're kind of like strength focused, right? You're trying to put on some muscle, then obviously we'd want someone to have a higher protein feed before going to bed, or, about an hour before they go to bed, whether that's like a high protein snack, or, like another protein shake, or something like that, just so that they've got at the last available opportunity, they've got a protein dose that can slowly absorb and digest over the evening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, shall I go again?
Yeah, go.
I've list as long as my arm.
Keep going.
Keep going. So I guess that kind of talking about the diet or the nutrition the night before kind of rolls quite nicely into people that train in the evening. They train, they eat, they go to bed, they're good. I guess in the morning, people have got an entire day before they get to bed. So it'd be good to understand, I guess, specifically around breakfast and immediately after the workout, what they might want to look at doing. Particularly, some people have got to, got to have a shower, commute, get to work. That can take an hour. Should they really be trying to get some nutrition in there? But then it gets also, over the course of the day, what can they do to help their recovery from a morning workout as opposed to an evening?
Yeah, excellent. What I find is that, it can be a common issue that for whatever reason, that meal after isn't potentially where it needs to be or optimal, and that can affect things like hunger and energy levels later in the day. So coming out of class, if we've trained in a fasted state, like post-workout nutrition now is like, super important. Like you fasted, you've just smashed yourself in half for an hour or so, like recovery is really, really important now. What I would do is ask yourself a question. So again, it's on a case-by-case basis, can you eat can you eat a meal within an hour of finishing training? So depending if your answer is yes or no is going to then kind of decide which path you go down. So if you're someone who's actually, right, well, I've got to shower and commute and whatever, and it's going to be a while before I get a solid meal in, then that's where potentially liquid nutrition could then help. So that could be something like, obviously, a smoothie from you could blend that the night before. You could, sometimes like metal shakers are pretty good, or, if they've got a fridge at the gym that they can use. Or it could be simple as, right, I'm going to make, a protein shake with, a couple of bits of fruit or something protein and carbohydrate based. That's going to, digest fairly quickly. Obviously, liquid nutrition is going to digest even faster. And we could have that within the first, kind of half an hour to 45 minutes after training. If, however, you're maybe going to go home, or you're going to go straight to your desk and you're going to have a solid meal, then great, have that solid meal. Again, the priority would be protein and carbs, whether that was, like a high protein yogurt, you're going to have eggs, or, carbohydrate from oats or fruit or that kind of thing. And then we just recommend for people to have a feed every, 3 to 4 hours thereafter, whether that is, dependent on their goals, but it may just be another meal, or it may be a snack, and kind of following that throughout the day. I think often just a little bit of planning as well, so that you don't suddenly get home in the evening, suddenly start logging in on everything on MyFitnessPal and realize you've completely blown it out the water. Yeah. But I would definitely say that either that first shake or, smoothie or whatever that kind of recovery option is, or that first meal is really important. And then the next meal after that, you then want to introduce, a bit more color in if we can, some vegetables. That might be like an early lunch. That's cool. Like I say, lower fat immediately post-workout. And then that second meal can be a little bit more fat and fiber based, etc., to kind of fill you up and give you a bit more sustained energy, rather than just like that big protein and carb hit.
Can I ask why a lower fat straight after the workout? Why do we kind of dial the fat down on that one?
Just in terms of rate of absorption. So fat and fiber slow down absorption. So post-workout, we want to replace glycogen. So particularly if we've done heavy lifting, or we've done, most CrossFit kind of workouts are between like 8 to 20 minutes. So we're using glycogen. We need carbs to kind of get that back up to normal.
Yeah.
and then protein to kind of, repair, kickstart that repair and recovery process. Fat can delay things like gastric emptying as well, and can lower insulin response. So we want to save those kind of higher fat options, or even like high fiber veg and things like that till later in the day, or lunch onwards potentially.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Next question.
Next question. I think you've actually covered them all pretty quickly there. We've really done pretty well. We've motored through that, haven't we?
Yeah. What other things do you find with either from yourself doing it, or from members coming in? Like, what do you kind of typically see them doing, or have asked about, or can be really specific? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So for myself personally, I do. I really, when I'm training in the morning, I really do struggle to feel like I kind of stay satisfied throughout the morning in terms of my hunger levels. My hunger does get pretty high. So I think it's probably pretty helpful to hear that maybe dialing the fat down and picking up the carbs or something might be a big help. And then I guess in terms of what people ask me, is it a case of, I mean, you mentioned nice small kind of eating every few hours. Is it that they need to be getting something in every couple of hours, something small and often, to kind of continue that recovery throughout the day?
We would say, ideally, like every 3 to 4 hours is pretty good. We don't need to be eating and grazing every, at every opportunity, because that can very quickly kind of mount up on calories. But, in terms of just general energy levels, every 3 to 4 hours, either for a meal or a snack, depending, on what your goals are. And also, if we're someone who maybe we are thinking about, building or retaining muscle, like there's something pretty cool that goes on in the body called muscle protein synthesis. And that happens in the body between kind of every 3 to 5 hours. So if you can get a regular, kind of protein feed in, you're going to maximize the chance of kind of building muscle, but also just repairing muscle as well. Like protein's not all about kind of just getting bigger. It's about helping your body repair and recover. And, if we're trying to, get up in the morning and train early, like we need to kind of give yourself the best fighting chance we can. So, regular protein feeding throughout the day. And then also then looking at like your nighttime routine, like if you're getting up that early, like I'd always ask people like, okay, so what time are you going to bed? Or what time are you thinking about going to bed? Can you get an extra half an hour in bed? Because that's going to make a huge difference when you're getting up at like 5:36 to come in and train in the morning.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? Because I find myself really, when we're training a lot, you really need to get the 8 hours in. Otherwise, the body just feels absolutely battered, especially after a morning class, sat there all day in your desk chair, and you can feel your body just wearing down.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's worth mentioning that, you can, like say, have a look at the stimulus of the session as well. Have a look at the programming and have a look at, in terms of, right, is it more of a, let's say, like an aerobic session? Is it is it more machine and body weight based? Because you can probably get, say, through with that on being fasted. However, if there's a barbell involved, if there's like high skill gymnastics and things that are more taxing, then we maybe need to think about getting something in. You could always potentially look at like intra workout nutrition as well. So it may just help a little bit of performance and a little bit of recovery. So again, that could be something, could be simple as like just making sure that you've got your water bottle with you and you could pop a hydration tablet in it. That's often something that's really kind of overlooked. A drop in performance, a drop in concentration is massive, and hydration will be the first thing that will affect that. Again, it could be something simple, like a BCAA is okay, but like an essential amino acid, something you can mix with water and just sip on during the session. Sometimes it's harder if it's a longer workout. You don't want to obviously be spending half your workout sipping on a drink. But if you've got a strength component first or a skill component, just like task yourself to drink that, a good amount of that bottled water or something during the first part of the class, because we do find that that will all help. Kind of piece together a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything the guys should do differently in terms of kind of their breakfast, I suppose, and their nutrition straight after that workout for kind of muscle gain versus fat loss? Should there be any difference in approach straight after the workout?
Not really. No, the general principles would apply. Is the fact that we would want protein and carbs. So, as a kind of guide for people, if they take their body weight in kilograms and times it by 0.4, they'll get a number, and that's like a really good target for number of grams of protein that you want to get in post workout. In terms of the amount of carbs, and that's obviously going to vary in terms of like someone's overall goal. So yeah, general principles are pretty much the same. You know, post training, we just want to prioritize recovery, and then it kind of ensure like all day energy too.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Okay. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. So yeah, I think just, you know, in terms of maybe just some take home points for some people, like I say, think about, you know, taking advantage of post workout. You know, you're going to be slightly increased insulin sensitivity. So protein and carbs will digest faster, minimize fat, minimize fiber, you know, have that later in the day. Hydration is really key, even in the winter, even when we don't feel like drinking water. Like I say, you know, hydrate when we get up and during the session. If we're going to train fasted, post-workout becomes really, really important. You could then trial and error. We spoke about, like say, liquid nutrition, or something maybe like a 100-calorie snack, something like a small banana, a piece of saurine. But again, that needs about an hour or maybe a little bit longer to digest. And then just fueling from the day before. Something we commonly see as well is often on a rest day, people think, oh, I'm just gonna eat a bit less today because I'm not as active. And then they come back into the gym and they go, oh, everything feels really heavy. Like, oh, I'm aching, I'm not recovered. And because if you've eaten like, you know, less, your body's not gonna be able to recover. So we always encourage our clients to work out calories for, you know, across the week. And it's pretty much for most people, it's the same number of calories every day. It helps you dial in portion sizes, portion controls, but it also helps you that if you've had that rest day, like you're able to recover, you're able to get a good night's sleep, and then able to hit your training again as soon as you need to.
Yeah, brilliant.
Super. Okay. Cool. We'll wrap that up there. So thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Like I say, any questions, anything else that I've missed and you want me to cover, drop me an email. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Thanks a lot.